Hey there! Well, I got this fabulous little two-piece nightstand set that I'll be refinishing. Going to go for a quick refinish. Going to be stripping the top, giving that a paint wash. Going to paint the base, and I hope to get some type of textured fabric for the drawer fronts. And I'm looking to complete this flip in about 3 hours.
Hey there, welcome back to another video from The Flipping Husband. My name's Andy, and if you're new here, welcome aboard. If you've already subscribed, thank you so much. I appreciate your help in me growing this small channel. Well, today I've got a set of nightstands, and this is the holy grail for furniture flipping, to find two like nightstands. And like I said in the intro, I do plan to give these guys a pretty quick flip, although these guys fought me every step of the way. It was almost a comedy of errors throughout this process. But like most flips, I do start the process by cleaning the outside as well as the inside, getting all of the dust and the yuckies out from a nightstand. I've had this little vacuum for a long time. My kids have nicknamed it Mr. Sucky. It does a great job getting the bigger debris. Then I can come back with my wet rag with simple green and give it a good clean. There are a lot of different chemicals that you can buy or little concoctions you can make that'll help you clean a piece of furniture. I've had great luck with the simple green. It comes in a spray bottle. I do squirt it on full strength and use a wet rag and I dilute it on the piece. And it does a great job of getting all of that grease and grime off of the piece.
When you're helping out, but Nico, look, see the camera? When you stand there, people can't see you. They can't see the piece. Good boy.
So that was Nico. He's our 1-year-old golden retriever who likes to hang out in the shop with me whenever it's safe. Now I will be spraying the outside of these pieces with an HVLP sprayer. So I'm taking a few minutes to get some tape on there and some paper, just working to mask off all of the sections that I don't want to have painted. And I am relatively new to paint spraying, so I did find this process pretty tedious. So if you guys have experience using a sprayer and you've taped off drawers, I'd love to get some suggestions on how I can make this process a little bit simpler and a little bit less time consuming. I completed the same process on all 4 drawers and then changed my focus to the top of each of the nightstands. I wanted to either stain it or do a whitewash and get a nice natural grain top. I thought about using a chemical stripper, but in my mind, I thought I could get this done faster if I just grabbed my random orbital sander. And I think this is 120 grit paper on here. I did spend a few minutes checking to see if this was a veneered top or solid wood, and I did not see any signs that it was a veneer. And you can tell if it's a veneer top by usually looking at the back of the piece, and you'll see a thin line where the texture and the color of the wood is a little bit different. And in this case, it certainly presented like a solid piece of wood. And I got all the way through sanding the second piece, and right about there, I burnt right through what turned out to be a very thin veneer on the top of this piece.
So that is going to change the design a little bit. So rather than doing a whitewash on the top, I'll probably be doing some type of glaze. So I'm going to go ahead and get these guys coated with a coat of primer and let that set up for the afternoon.
I normally apply a primer that I brush on, and it's a shellac-based product. It's really fast drying and durable. I did try this rattle can primer to see if it was any faster and if I liked it. And I got to say, I'm not a big fan. The smell and the overspray and the coverage just wasn't there. The time saving for me just wasn't enough for what I got out of it. So I think in the future, I'll go back to using my paintbrush and a foam roller to apply my shellac-based primers.
But the next step before I apply my paint, I definitely want to go over this with a 220 grit sanding block and knock down all of the rough spots on here to give a nice smooth surface for the paint.
Well, one good thing about that rattle can primer is it only took about 25 or 30 minutes to dry. It's a beautiful 70-degree day in Vermont and low humidity, so I was able to jump right onto this sanding step and continue the prep for the paint. Time spent here sanding this primer is going to give me a real good surface for when I go to apply the paint. The paint's not going to take out any rough spots, so you definitely want to take a few minutes and make sure you've got it all smooth. And I use my hand to rub over the surface, and that's my good judge on whether or not it's sanded thoroughly.
It's pretty easy. I'll be using a fusion mineral paint in the color Everett. This is left over from a previous project. I did give this a stir. I'm going to run it through the paint filter, and we'll get this project started.
I am new to spraying paint with a HVLP sprayer, so if you've used one of these before, you probably can see the next issue that I'm going to run into. But I must say I do like this sprayer. I like how quickly it puts down the paint on the piece and how smooth of a finish that it does provide. So I'm pretty stoked that I have one, and I definitely will be using this in projects in the future.
As you can see, I ran out of paint before I even got the first coat of this Everett green on these nightstands. So I'm going to shift gears and go to plan C at this point. And I'm going to give these guys an off-white paint and maybe some accents on it. I'm not sure quite yet what I'll do. But I'm going to let this paint dry up and we will start over with a whole new color, one that I have more of.
I picked this paint up at my local Lowe's hardware store. It was on the mist tent rack. I want to say I paid $5 for this, maybe $7. That's a great tip. Anytime you're in one of those big box stores, definitely swing by the mist tent rack and see what you can find. Well, it just took me a couple of seconds to assemble the Wagner sprayer, and I'm going to go ahead and get the white paint on these guys. And this is going to be the final color of this flip. I don't show it in this video, but I did end up putting 2 coats of this white paint to get good coverage over that green base layer that I had from my last try. And I found that the light coats did a really good job. It just took a couple of hours to dry between coats. And again, I did a nice sanding between each coat. A little bit of black spray paint on the handles. It's going to give us a nice contrast between the white and the black. I let the white paint dry for a couple of days and then came back in with a water-based polyurethane and gave the top 2 coats of this urethane. And after that dried, I was able to apply a pretty generous layer of this glaze from Rust-Oleum. Again, I picked it up at my local hardware store, relatively inexpensive. Now the secret to this whole process is that I put that layer of polyurethane down, and that's going to prevent this glaze from soaking into the paint. If I hadn't done that, I would have a really hard time to get this effect. Which I'm just taking a 3-inch paintbrush, again, it's just a generic paintbrush, and I'm dragging it across this glaze, and I'm wiping off the excess glaze from the bristles on each stroke. And it's basically reverse painting. I'm pulling glaze off of the surface, and what I'm leaving behind is a nice grain type pattern. It gives it a lot of nice depth and character to a piece. I've done this a couple of times in projects in the past, and it's always come out really well. It is a little tricky to get the edges to blend in right, but I found it just took a couple of minutes of dragging the brush through the glaze. And if I didn't like it, you could just add a little bit more glaze and try again. But the secret here is to make sure that you continue to wipe the glaze off of the bristles of that brush. So you want a dry brush when you're doing this. Just think of reverse painting. And then after you get the look the way that you want it, just leave the piece alone. It's going to take a couple of days for this real thick layer of glaze to set up and dry on the surface. And of course, if you have a hair in there, you have to get that out. But it will take a couple of days to dry, and then you'll want to seal that piece with a couple of layers of polyurethane to set it and seal it all in. In the meantime, I went ahead and removed all of the paper and the tape that I had put on these drawers back when I first started this project. You can see that a little bit of time I spent taping those edges really pays off a lot now, where I have real crisp, clean lines between the wood drawer sides and the drawer fronts. So all's left now is to reinstall the hardware and go ahead and get this guy ready for sale on Facebook Marketplace. But before I could complete the project, another piece of furniture came. This is going to be one of my next pieces. It's got to be one of the largest and heaviest pieces of furniture that I've picked up to date. And I will be repurposing this dresser as a credenza for use as a media stand in a living room. So look for that video in the near future. Well, before we get to the final reveal, let's take a look at where I started with these two nightstands. And here we are with a finished product. A nice off-white black hardware, fake wood grain top. These guys came out just fabulous. If you've enjoyed this content, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. That way you'll be notified the next time I put out a video, which I hope to do on a weekly basis. All right, folks, appreciate you spending time with me today. Enjoy your day, and we'll see you again next time.